We have more information on the G1 Climax tournament, a look at a wild night at the Despe Invitational, plus a preview of a big weekend of action with All Together and NJPW Soul. All that plus your questions. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style.
It's a really cool open.
Thanks. Welcome back to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. And we are here to talk about a lot of things this week that happened. The Desperado Invitational was insane. We're going to get all into that. Jeremy watched it. He's going to tell us all about it. We have some news and notes. Hikuleo, now gone. Looks like he is headed indeed to WWE.
News, not noise.
It was news, not noise, and you would have known it if you'd been watching our show for a while anyway. But we had this one pegged for a minute, although it did happen a little quicker than we thought it had. Hello, Colin. We're glad you're here. Dunstan, we got your questions. We're going to get to those. We're glad to have you guys along. But yeah, Hikuleo out of the tournament. Shingo Takagi is going to be in the Owen Hart tournament in AEW. So a lot of news this week, Jeremy. How you feeling?
I'm feeling like New Japan is taking part in the rest of the world and trying to put an oomph on their name again, and it feels kind of good. I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about New Japan. What do you got first for us, buddy?
Well, I think this G1 news is intriguing to me. You know, we touched on it a little bit last week. If you saw it, of course, we're back to the 2 blocks of 10. We're all excited about that. I think that seems to be something that's been very popular with New Japan fans, going back to the 2 blocks of 10 instead of the 4 blocks. We're down to 20 participants again. 18 of them we know will be announced on Sunday at Seoul, NJPW Seoul Night 1. Which is the event coming up. It'll be on NJPW World, so we can find out who 18 of them are. The last spot in each block will be decided in a play-in tournament that'll go on throughout the rest of the NJ Seoul tour. That'll go on through very early July. And so we'll be keeping an eye off of that. It'll be a single elimination tournament to determine the last 2 people in each block. And, of course, another thing that's become very popular, decision, is back to 30-minute time limits instead of the rather tight 20 that we had last year. So
my
overall,
understanding is that the play-in is going to be 2 tournaments of 8 people. So it'll be 8 for 2, 8 for 4, 4 for 2, 2 for 1, and then they'll get the A block and the B block spot.
Yeah, it's an intriguing thing, because I was going over a list, and we're going to get into this more in a little while, but just going over a list of people who really seem like they should be in this tournament, and there are more than 20 of them. So some people that seem like they ought to be in are going to be left out. And of course, I'm sure most of those people will participate in the play-in tournaments. But Jeremy, my thought on this goes to, there's going to be some folks that are left out that have been making the tournament the last few years. It also does not leave a ton of room for guests.
No, it does not. I think it was Sunday that I started just writing down a list, and my list was comprised of who was in the G1 last year. We had a lot of people in that tournament last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it became abundantly clear that we might get one name from outside, but there's not a whole lot of room to give with 20 people in the current roster from New Japan. We talked about how small the roster feels, but when you got to put 20 names and you're deciding who's going to make the cut, some feelings are going to get hurt. Let's leave it at that.
It doesn't take long to get to 20, does it? Because I was just kicking it around, and I'm just going to list off, and this is not an announcement as to who's the G1. My point is, these are people that I thought should probably be in. I'm just going down the list of just going down the different factions and saying, okay, that guy from United Empire, this guy from LIJ should be in the G1. And I don't mean like I'm going to throw a fit if they aren't. I'm just saying that when I think about the G1, yeah, that's a G1 guy, right? So just from LIJ alone, you got Naito, Tsuji, and Shingo. So that's 3 of the 20 right there. David Finlay, certainly the leader of Bullet Club's got to be in, right? Shota Umino, of course. Goto and Yoshihashi, Tomohiro Ishii. So there's the Chaos guys. Ren Narita and Evil, you would think, are going to be in this thing. Zack Sabre Jr.,
Yep.
Jeff Cobb, Grado Khan,
Yep.
heck, half of United Empire, Taichi, Sanada, and maybe Hiroshi Tanahashi. We'll talk about that. Maybe TJP, Henare, Kenta, El Phantasmo were all people that you would think are going to be in, but I'm already over 20. Not all these people can be in.
Yoshihashi and Goto, why would they be in if Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste are the tag champions? You know what I mean? So there's two more guys that you have to think about. Which guys are going to get the play in? Is their record last year at in the G1 going to take into account whether they're in the play-in or not this year? You know, you had Ren and Shota and Yota Tsuji all have very poor records going into last year. Is that going to put them in the play-in tournament? If you have a title, does that automatically seed you into the tournament? You don't have to worry about the play-in. There are a number of rules here that they haven't really made clear, and we're going to find out a lot at New Japan Soul. You know, all the names that you mentioned were all in the G1 last year, and I think except for the exception of TJP, which at this point I am not counting on TJP for anything. And if you're going to put a spot for TJP in the G1, I don't know how I feel about that right now.
Well, I think it could end up being a story. Keep in mind, these play-in tournaments are going to be used as a storyline too. I mean, the idea that somebody's going to get in there. I hypothesized, for instance, that you could do that with Henare, saying that he was hurt most of the year. He doesn't have a 2024 resume for the G1, so he has to fight his way in to that spot. And maybe you could make a deal out of that. TJP might be a thing where, okay, I have to prove myself yet again, that whole thing. So there's all this that you can do to kind of build guys in. The other thing, I didn't have Toru Yano on that list, and I'm not sitting here saying that Toru Yano has to be in, but they like to put him in because it gives guys a day off. Basically,
the night off guy.
Yeah, the night off guy. And on the other side, Yujiro Takahashi is often that guy because he doesn't do a whole lot in his matches. So you almost have that night off. I don't think Yujiro's getting into this one. It's a little snug, but who knows? I think he'll be in the play-in tournament. I think a lot of guys will be in that, but I am very curious to see who doesn't get in. A couple of people here, including Dunstan and Colin, have wondered, will Tanahashi leave himself out? He usually turns it on for the G1 and works hard and manages to have as many good knee days as he can, but there will come a time when he can't do that tournament anymore. It happened for Nagata. It happened for Kojima. It happened for Suzuki. It happened for Tenzan.
I have one for you.
We're getting close. What do you think?
What about an injury angle before the G1?
With Tana?
Yeah.
I mean,
what if Bolton finally snaps and Tana can't even go? Like
you're not letting go of this.
He can't even participate in the play-in. He's got to bow out.
Ethan's very relieved here. Thank God the G1 is back to 2 blocks. And
I was just thinking it was really funny when back in February, January, March, we were talking like, how are you gonna we got to think about guys like Riddle, and we got to think about guys like Nemeth, and maybe Jeff Perry will be in the G1 this year. Now we're getting into the G1. It's like, nope, that's not happening. There's not even room for these guys.
Yeah. So I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of the regular tag team wrestlers. Now, they've always treated Goto and Yoshihashi differently in that respect. Now, obviously, Bishamon is a regular tag team, but it would be strange for a G1 without Goto. They could do it. I mean, there's not a lot of that, but I don't think we're going to be getting a lot of tag teams wrestlers in this one. I don't think most of the War Dogs are going to be in here. Maybe Gabe Kidd, but I'm not even positive on that. He could be I could see Gabe Kidd getting into the play-in and then getting himself disqualified. Just something goofy like that, just to keep him out of it. That could happen. Again, I'm not, but
I think it's too dynamic to leave out. Like I don't know. You
only get 20.
Finley in one. You put Gabe Kidd in the other.
you only get 20.
You only get 20, but
yeah,
you don't have any pure out heels like Gabe Kidd and Finley that just there's everyone you want to root for, and then there's the guys you absolutely don't want to win. And he's one of and I don't even know if Gabe Kidd's the guy you absolutely don't want to win, but he plays that role. You know what I mean? I feel like it would be a huge mistake and would severely undermine the potential and the run of Gabe Kidd right now if he was not in the G1 this year.
And it's also pretty clear that this is going to be a heavyweight tournament. I don't see juniors getting in there. It's just, again, no room. And even somebody like Hiromu Takahashi or something like that, I don't see him being part of this one in 2024 anyway. I don't see him taking up one of those 20 spots.
I wonder if like anyone who lost in the first round of the New Japan Cup has to go to the play-in instead of getting or like the record from last year. You know, if your record was poorer, you do not you have to play in rather than, because there has to be a record-based reason for some of these people to get in and not get in, right? Like it just fast and loose, right? Like, well, they go.
Well, my point of that is, they haven't always held to that. I mean, people have had bad records in G1s and gotten in the next year without much problem. It doesn't seem to be, if you have a bad G1, you don't seem to struggle to get into it the following year necessarily. So they don't really follow that at all.
I get the distinct impression, and this may just be me and the way that they're presented it on Dominion, right? New Japan is acutely aware that the G1 season is one of the most highly visible seasons for them. And in order to get the maximized thing, they need to come up with the best concepts, whatever plans that they have, the best rosters, the best everything. I've heard the feedback that they don't like the 5 or 6-man match blocks. They want to go back to the 9 matches per person in the 2 blocks, old traditional thing, but they're still doing bigger playoff semifinals and whatnot. I don't know what their mentality is other than I feel like they know this is their biggest opportunity for eyeballs for the entire year at this point. Because I don't think Dominion really landed with the impact they wanted it to, right? Like Jack Perry during the New Japan Cup, it got people talking, but it more benefited Jack Perry going to AEW. People who liked and watched him in New Japan had a great time, but he's not coming back. You know, so now this is it. Like the New Japan Cup is there, or the G1 is now their opportunity, their biggest opportunity, and maybe their only opportunity to get new eyeballs this year, more so than anyone else. And I think that's on their radar. And so
I think there are ways to get some different people in here and some others out of there. For instance, I mean, you could realistically put Ishii or even Evil, Kenta, Goto, and Yoshihashi in that play-in tournament and have somebody that you really want in there. Let's say Oleg or Callum Newman or something like that, get that upset win over them and get into the tournament and eliminate them. You know, like there are ways for everyone that you think of when you think of the G1 to participate, but not make it all the way into the big rounds. You know, it might be a way of helping out some of the older guys too. This thing, I mean, everybody takes a pounding in the G1. This is the most grueling tournament out there. And I always go back to when Rocky Romero, John Moxley told the story when Rocky Romero said, "Hey, how about doing the G1?" You know, he had said, "Yeah, I want to come to Japan. How about doing this match here at Dominion?" "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." "And how about this one?" "Yeah, how about the G1?" Ugh. Like all of a sudden he's like, that sounds really hard. You know, that sounds really difficult. But so it is hard on everyone. So Tanahashi, Ishii, some of those guys who are, you know, getting around that my age, it might be time for a play-in tournament loss, perhaps, and not have to do 9 hard matches in a short period of time. There's ways to work this, and I'm very curious to see how they do it and how they get this roster down to 20.
I will tell you, you and I both talked. We both kind of see that Sabre Jr. as the eventual winner of this tournament, or the likeliest guy to win this thing, right? You know,
the shortest odds. I'm not willing to back the truck up, but he feels like it.
Do you have other winners that you could think of, or other scenarios besides that Sabre Jr.? Like, what's the next kind of like idea? Or
I don't feel about anyone the way I felt about Desperado in the Super Juniors, where I just thought it's his year, and I'll be disappointed if it's not. I keep going back to the idea that we're going to have Naito, and that Naito has to main event against somebody. If Naito has the title and he's going into Wrestle Kingdom as the champion, it opens up more options than the other way around. Because if Naito weren't the champion going. If he's not the champion going into the G1, he almost has to win it because they got to have him in that big spot. It's so. So with the idea that he can maybe beat Moxley at Forbidden Door, go into this thing of the G1, certainly puts Zach in play, and I think he would be an excellent guy for that role. I think that would be a good thing for him. I don't think if it's anybody else, I don't think you can really discount. Maybe Shingo. I think he's going to win one of these some year. I don't. And my question to you here too. It would be highly unusual for there to be absolutely zero guests. Even when there were only 10 people in the G1, they would bring in somebody like La Sombra, Andrade. He's been in the G1 before when he was with CMLL. Plenty of other guys that would be guests here. Do you see at least one guy from Noah popping over?
Maybe Keno?
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah,
like something like that.
It's not impossible, especially for the play-in. And if you get into the G1 and you win a tournament to get into the G1, and then he has a bad showing, you can play off a number of different ways in order to save face and still continue they're friendly now over in Noah, right now, like they're in a
for now. Let's see what this announcement is on Sunday.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing. I just met Keno and Kaito Kiyomiya in the past, but they had a rivalry about Kiyomiya's performance last year, so there was always some kind of I wonder if Keno ever did the G1 as well. But if he did the play-in and was one of the people that got in through the play-in and then had a similar result in the actual G1 to Kaito Kiyomiya because of something that happened during the play-in tournament, but he still got it at the G1, that could be an interesting kind of side story, and get visual on that guy. There was a guy over in the We Work Stiff, or individual over in the We Work Stiff Discord, and they threw out a scenario of somebody winning the G1. And now that they've explained the scenario, I was like, I kind of want this to happen. And it was Ishii. He has the Cinderella run this year.
Oh, see,
and
I love.
He wins. He goes to Wrestle Kingdom, and he wins or loses, and he retires.
Oh wow! I do kind of love that idea. They haven't done a real Cinderella G1 in a very long time. They are less sentimental about that than most companies. Like for instance, it was primed for a Jushin Liger run in the Best of the Super Juniors for a couple of years because he was still wrestling really, really well, but he was mostly putting other guys over, and they didn't do it. We went something like 2-6 or whatever it was. They did a Cinderella run with Riki Choshu in the 1990s, where just out of nowhere, Riki Choshu made this run and got hot and beat everybody, including what was it? It was Masa Chono in the finals in 1996, and it was people were going insane, throwing babies in the air and then throwing their seat cushions into the ring, which Sumo Hall hates, by the way, but they did it anyway. It was a special thing there, but they don't do the sentimental stuff all that often. But it's not. I would love it. As an Ishii mark, I'm down.
Right? This individual, their name is Arbor on the Discord. I just want to give them credit because it was a fantastic scenario that they posited. When you have 3 people making a bracket, making the finals, you have that real possibility of the ultra weekend, and it's like guys like Cobb who probably not going to make it again into the top 3, and it's going to be like a weird reason this time again. It's like. If you have the opposite with Ishii where he does make it and then all of a sudden, like, he's got a real chance and then he somehow wins and goes all the way to Wrestle Kingdom and faces Naito and Ishii. Naito and Ishii could main event Wrestle Kingdom at this point. I don't think that that's impossible. So I think Naito and Ishii, Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. I do not think Naito and Finlay, for example. I don't think that is I don't think that's a great idea for a match personally, but I don't rule it out, especially if I think it's not a match just for the title and he wins it. I don't rule anything out at this point. We are in a stage of pure chaos in New Japan heading into the G1. And those were just the two stories that I really like going to the G1. And when I do my bracket and fill that stuff out, it's probably kind of the narratives I go with.
You really can't count out Shota Umino necessarily either. But the other thing that got me is last year we had the final peak happy ending for LIJ. Naito won. They were all up in the ring. They all did. He got his roll call. It was peak, the happiest ending Naito could possibly have.
Yeah.
The only other thing, if we went to Zach, that would be a terrific match. The other thing is to go with the drama aspect of it. What if it's Shingo? What if it's Tsuji? Tsuji, a bit of a long shot, but what if it's Shingo? And now we have to go 6 months with these two looking at each other out of the corner of their eye. And after that big happy, we're all, we've all risen to the top together. And even our former brother Sonata helped us get this roll call by stopping Evil from interrupting it.
Right.
What if in the end, now it's just paranoia among LIJ for a few months. And it all comes down to this dramatic finish at Wrestle Kingdom. That's the other way to go with it.
Well, go ahead and take a drink and I'll take it over for a second.
Once a show, like clockwork.
There is a lot of meat to the LIJ strife because they are the most popular faction in New Japan. You have Shingo, who I've been beating the drum that needed to be at the main event level with Naito, not a second to Naito, especially with the lack of main event talent. I don't know if the G1 is the vehicle to do that, but it could be the vehicle to start that, if that's kind of what you're putting down with the energy that you're putting there. The more you think about all the directions that New Japan can go, it really just depends on how safe they want to play and just how much they want to throw into the mix and say, like, hey, this isn't working, this isn't working, this is what we need to do to change this promotion and to get it to a point where all the engines are firing on all cylinders and we can count on any division to embolden any card that we have. Right now that they don't really have that. And so what direction are they going to go? Are they going to go safe? Are they going to go moderate? Or are they going to go extreme? There's a winner for the G1 for every one of those, right? And it's just kind of the room read. The room read still says safe to moderate to me.
Yeah, we are going to get a lot of information on Sunday when we find out the 18 participants, and that's going to go a long way toward telling us what they have in mind. Now, one of those people will not be one of the semifinalists from last year, Hikuleo. He seems to have left New Japan, and like I said, it happened faster than we thought. It looks like that was his last day there when he did the job in the four-way tag match. Afterwards, in comments, he looked like he was ticked off at El Phantasmo, but he didn't play it that way. In the comments, in fact, there was a group hug with he and Jado where there were a bunch of I love yous as El Phantasmo apologized for accidentally kicking him and things. And it did not seem like he was carrying a grudge against El Phantasmo. However, he did say, I love you, and then walked away very symbolically. And it does appear that Hikuleo is WWE bound. Again, my prediction here is we're going to see Gorillas of Destiny and Solo Sikoa against the Usos, reunited Usos, a babyface Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu down the road there, probably at War Games or something.
How cool would it be, though, if you had Hikuleo and Jacob Fatu flipped? Like, you just kind of there was just you expect Hikuleo to be with Tonga and Loa, but
I do.
He's not. Roman brings their brother in to keep him in line.
Well, who knows? But either way, Phantasmo didn't have anything to say at the Despe Invitational either. He just kind of walked away from backstage comments. So he's playing this up like he's a little bit shattered by this whole development. That's how Desperado's chosen to play it.
In one of the matches. It was fun.
Yeah, so that's part of that. And then, like I mentioned, too, the other news and note, Shingo Takagi entering the Owen Hart tournament. So he will be part of that and representing New Japan over in AEW. So if nothing else, it'll be a great match with whoever they throw him into. In there with the Owen Hart tournament tends to be some of the better wrestling of the year from a company that provides a lot of good wrestling. So I'm looking forward to seeing
Shingo. To a main event match at All In, so it better be a goddamn top level tournament.
But it always, you know what I mean? It's not like they have schmucks in the first round either. I mean, like it's usually
the Owen Hart
pretty
tournament in the past is not exactly like led me to think that this is A+ talent all the time. Like I have,
oh really? Okay.
They have upgraded over the years, but it has not felt to me like, I don't know. It just the winners were top level, right? But before you got to there, it wasn't everybody that I was super impressed with in those years.
I don't have all the tournament brackets in front of me, so maybe I'm misremembering some of that.
Like I have a fond memory of being very disappointed with AEW tournaments from like 2021 to 2023.
Let me get this straight. You have a fond memory?
The Continental Classic.
you just describe it as a fond memory of being disappointed?
No, I had fond memories because it was just compounding over and over and over again. I was actually,
you realize fond means good, right? If you have a fond memory of something, it's
like
good.
I know I was using my words correctly because
I don't know you are.
Because I get to have these conversations with my friends Dave and Garrett about it.
Oh God! I have a fond memory of disappointment.
About this one, when the tournament was announced, you're like, if you're getting a title match at All In out of this tournament, you can't fucking have Daniel Garcia in this tournament. Like this has got to be like main eventers. This has got to be. MJF should be in this tournament. Bryan Danielson should be in this tournament. Moxley should be in this tournament. Ospreay should be in this tournament. There should be like 8 people, and like Hangman Page. These are the guys that need to be in the tournament, not Action Andretti or a couple of these other people. Like, oh yeah, this guy really has a chance to really like blow it away with Swerve Strickland at the main event at Wembley.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And I think what we've learned here, Jeremy, most importantly, is that your true calling is writing lyrics for The Cure. So I have fond memories of being disappointed. That's a Cure lyric if ever I've heard one. But it's I'm just stuck on that. That's one of my favorite
Cure
songs.
The Smiths, my friend. I could probably nail it for both.
I get a little Morrissey in there. Dunstan says, I really hope we have some good surprise entrants. It's not that I don't like the current roster, but that I've seen most of them fight already. That's not a bad point. It'd be good to have some freshness in there. And he said if Tana really wants a dynamic G1 this year, he would take himself out of it. I don't disagree. His knees and you can't have that many good knee days. Even if you do the cortisone shots right before the tournament, still tough to have that many good knee days in the middle of a month-long run. So, with that in mind, we will of course be covering the announcements regarding the G1 tournament here next week. There was a show this week. Of course, we did our Dominion thing on Sunday. You can go back and find that here on our feed or in the podcast feed if you want to hear our total review of Dominion. But after that, the Desperado Invitational. Jeremy watched it. I did not. I had visitors in from out of town, and my mom was here. It was fantastic. But Jeremy, you did watch the Despe Invitational, and I was looking at the results. I saw some of the photographs, some of which I can't unsee, and we'll be talking about this. It looked like a night where everyone had a good time, but not necessarily.
It was a fucking party.
That's what it felt like. It felt like everyone got together and had a party because it did not feel like a very serious pro wrestling card, but it looked like everybody had a blast.
Do you know what the cage match score of this thing is?
I don't know. I don't know.
Take a wild shot in the dark, yes.
I don't even know what the scale is. I don't pay attention.
1 through 10.
Oh, 1 through 10. Yeah, I'll bet this one got a 7.5.
9.35.
Oh, all right, people. Get a hold of yourselves, for the love of God. Get a hold of yourselves.
People loved watching this show. There are smart people that I respect that wanted to call Desperado Booker of the Year as a result of just the fun that they had watching this show. This was stupid. This was absolutely a ridiculous show. I had an absolute blast. I went in watching it on Monday afternoon, completely keeping myself spoiler free. Even when you go on to New Japan World and you have to buy it through the browser and do that, the match cards are anonymous. It is X versus X, match 1, X versus X, match 2. So you didn't know anything. And Walker Stewart and Chris Charlton on the call. They're doing their best Bobby Uecker impression tonight. The hair's down a little bit. They I don't know if they had a beer or two or anything while they were watching the show, but these two were enjoying themselves and just taking part in the festivities. So we had an opening match. It was a six-person tag match. It was the Bebop tag team of Hiroshi Tanahashi and Toru Yano, and they had Kyoko Inoue, and they defeated Dash Chisako, Isami Kodaka, and Yuko Miyamoto in 10 minutes. Between Yano and Tanahashi, you know what you're getting with this. The rock gimmick was in full force. The humor in the match was basically Tana and Yano vying for the affection of Inoue through and to the end of the match. A real romance for the ages. We shall see next time, the next Despe Invitational, what their future thruple opportunities are, because the thruple was mentioned by Charlton and Walker. This wasn't, are you going to choose? This was,
so I'm guessing the Bebop storyline is some sort of triangle between characters or something, because they seem to be playing that up a lot, like it was the whole Bebop thing. But and I'm not familiar with it.
Nothing,
so I don't
nothing
know.
is in continuity tonight. Like whatever happened tonight will not be brought up again. Like so
right, but
it's all just ridiculousness.
The point I was saying that they had the backstage comments are available on World without buying the pay-per-view, so I was able to watch that, and it's clear that everybody had fun here. Inoue, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Kyoko Inoue, one of the greats of All Japan Women's Wrestling in the 90s. She's held their world championship, was in there with Manami Toyota and Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto and all these the greats from that era. Inoue was definitely one of them. She was a fantastic worker, and she was in there having a blast with Yano and Tanahashi. We're also having fun just playing up the whole thing. Everybody was all smiles back there. And I mean, it just looked like it was just a fun little exhibition more than anything else, but there you go.
So when everybody comes out, all you hear is their music, and you don't know if that's the last person coming out in each match. That's basically how it went the entire night with this Mystery Vortex. We then had Dragon Kid and Starlight Kid come out. And then you had El Desperado come out and introduce Mima Shimoda, who is a legend in Japanese pro wrestling and beloved by everyone, fans and everyone. You know more about her history than I do. But
we see her at Fantastica Mania. She's married to Okamoto.
So she was fantastic. They did they built it as a family match where Dragon Kid and Starlight Kid were the little brother, little sister, challenging Mima and El Desperados, the big brother, big sister. And the little ones beat the big ones. Just chain wrestling, aerial movements, 17 and a half minutes. I couldn't tell you other than it was just a party match. Everyone was just having fun with each other. This
was not a mixed tag match where the women were in with the women and the guys were in with the guys. They were bumping each other, right? I mean, I saw
everybody. It was all fluidity in the matches tonight. Like everyone wrestled each other. There was nothing. There was nothing held back. But this was, I think, this and the first match were the only mixed gender matches.
Okay. Well, there you go. And then afterwards, everybody was again all smiles, but Starlight Kid said now that she's wrestled Desperado in a tag, she's been against him. You know, he was putting moves on her. She was putting moves on him. I mean that in the pro wrestling sense. And they've always had like a little brother sister dynamic anyway, going back to the last historic crossover where they're buddies and had that awesome hybrid mask. That was fantastic. And but she said she wants a singles match with Despe. That's what she wants. And, that's what she was making a play for, a singles match, Starlight Kid versus Desperado at crossover. We'll see if we get it. Who knows? But it's not impossible anymore, Jeremy, because I remember this from crossover. The men weren't supposed to bump the women, and like the women would get some stuff in on the guys and all that kind of stuff, but a little more like WWE where the woman can hit the guy, but not the other way around, right? Except Tanahashi did. Tanahashi's in the one spot from that show I absolutely hated. He slapped Micah across the face, which I thought was terrible and shouldn't have done it. But he mentioned later that Tanahashi said this before he was president, after the show, that he didn't see why, if pro wrestling, again, it can be anything to anyone. He didn't see why men can't wrestle the women. So with President Tanahashi, this might be in play.
Yeah, I was definitely watching Desperado and Starlight Kid wrestle each other, and there was a gentleness, but at the same time, they weren't holding back with each other. They were just limiting the type of wrestling that they would do with each other. You know what I mean? But they are so talented and so smooth in the ring that unless you are incredibly you've watched a ton of wrestling, you wouldn't see what they are doing is like the light tope actions and like the movement where it's not high impact, like slugging each other kind of thing.
Like I saw Desperado give her a back elbow off the ropes, and that's basically the person running that takes the bump. You stick your elbow out, they run into it, and it's up to them how hard of a bump they want to take. Right. That seemed to be a lot of what they were doing.
Just very smart working to not put themselves in a bad situation.
Oh, Colin would be in for Desperado versus Starlight Kid. Be interesting to see. Maybe they'll do it. Who knows?
Over.
Things did not get any more normal after this. Jeremy, tell us about this next one.
Daisuke Sasaki and Doki and Eita and Violento Jack. This was the dumbest four-way that you'll see in quite some time. I don't know what everyone was thinking in this match, but I had a great time watching it. Okay. Everyone basically just did their high spots. You know, it was just 10 minutes of high spots and moves and everyone getting their shine in. The end of the match had Sasaki and Doki and Eita all pinning Violento Jack together. So they all three won the match.
Oh, there you go.
What we're getting out of this tonight, guys. Fun. I can't tell you anything other than this match other than, like, I watch them like, I don't know what's happening here. I just repeat. But I got to tell you, after that, it all just got magical.
Now, this next match, this contained Minoru Suzuki and Hiromu Takahashi. So I'm thinking a technical little match here that is just all about the moves and technical wrestling. Do I have this one nailed correctly, Jeremy?
Absolutely not, Steven. This is a hardcore tag team match. Let me lay out the situation for you.
This was bonkers.
Takayuki Ueki comes out first. He's dressed in his infantile police uniform, and he starts pacing around with the bucket of Lego-style building blocks. He does his salute, and he gets ready for whatever happens next. And then you hear Minoru Suzuki's music hits. The crowd explodes, but it goes a while. Like, this crowd is getting fired up. It's getting amped, right? It's probably about another minute longer than it needs to be playing the entry out, like the beginning, like chords of Minoru's thing until he gets there. He comes out from Korakuen's side. They're all clapping. He has a steel chair in hand. He comes right into the ring. He faces off right into Ueki, and he just growls and then turns around. Then Hiromu's music hits. And this crowd goes nuts. He comes out like a madman. He's got a bouquet of flowers. And he runs right over to this girl with a little Daryl doll. And he leans down at her, and it's Gypsy Kasai. And he hands Gypsy Kasai the bouquet of flowers.
Okay.
And then everyone realizes who it is. And then Jun Kasai comes out right behind him.
Oh, my goodness.
So here's where it gets crazy, is that Hiromu, when Jun Kasai's music hits, decides to headbang around the entirety of the ring and bust himself open hard way on the metal rails outside of the ring, and he's bleeding from the side of his temple before the match even starts.
Oh, Hiromu.
So I don't know if this was intentional, but it set the tone for the entire match because Hiromu was already busted open.
Now, I'll say this is not a gig. I mean, he had it was not a gig. He, like you said, it was a hard way shot, and there was a significant cut over his left eye there from that thing on his eyebrow. He busted himself
open.
Yeah.
So it was a typical hardcore match. It was so much fun. The big spots included everyone taking off their shoes individually so that they were wrestling in the hardcore match barefoot. Right? Including Minoru Suzuki, who was the last one to do it. He looked around and he made a big old production, and then he took off his shoes, and everyone goes wild. There's a 20-minute time limit. This thing goes 19 minutes and 53 seconds, right? Things fell apart for Ueki and Suzuki when Ueki tried to command Suzuki on what to do. You don't tell Minoru Suzuki what to do, and it all went bad from there. He stopped Suzuki from pulling a gotch pile driver on Hiromu, would have won the match. Hiromu countered. Then Jun hit a tiger driver on Ueki. Suzuki gave Ueki the gotch pile driver while Jun gave him the mad splash. Suzuki and Jun put a ton of blocks on him. And then Hiromu did another mad splash on Ueki with the goggles and got the pin. This might be match of the year.
Now there you have it. And afterwards, Hiromu mentioned that he wouldn't mind doing a death match someday. Maybe it could happen. Maybe he could do it. He said that he understood that this match was a walk in the park for Jun Kasai, but he said maybe he's ready for a full one now. Kasai did not say no.
Yeah. The next one was the hardcore four-way hardcore match. Chris Brooks versus El Phantasmo versus Mao versus Masashi Takeda. I am not as familiar with Takeda as most others are, but he was very impressive in this match. This did, in fact, go to the time limit draw. Takeda had Brooks in his leg lock when the match went to it. Afterwards, Brooks challenged Desperado for July and DDT. There was a bit where the announcers and the other wrestlers kind of touched on Phantasmo feeling betrayed by his partners when Brooks tried to get him to work together on teaming up against Takeda. Then, Phantasmo turned on them because he wasn't feeling like teaming up with anybody. A nice little tease right there. But Takeda was the top dog in the match. He was treated as the second biggest, and then it was Brooks and Mao kind of in the hierarchy of who was protected the most in this match.
All right. So that was it. So we'll move on to the next one after that. And again, they mentioned that you mentioned already the Brooks and Desperado will wrestle on a DDT event. So more instances of New Japan talent going out to other promotions. And then we had a singles match with Zack Sabre Jr. and Hikaru Sato. So Sato works mostly for he works for everybody, really. I mean, he's probably done more matches for Noah lately than anything else, but he's been with All Japan recently. He's been through a lot of the indies, so this is a very well-traveled guy in there with Zach.
So Desperado did video packages for each of the matches, and he introduced Zack Sabre Jr. came out and he talked about how Zack Sabre Jr. has wrestled Danielson in the U.S. and he's going to be wrestling Hechicero in Mexico, but he needs to wrestle a guy, a technical king in Japan. So he's got the guy, the best technical wrestler, the king of pancrase. And as Walker and Chris Charlton explained, also a huge pornography addict and half of the tag team champs in All Japan. So the entire gimmick is that Zach shakes his hand and then he should wipe his hands afterwards because they are intimating that he really likes to self-please. This is all during the match. 1,000% this is happening. But once he got past the gimmick, there was no gimmick of it. This was simply explaining what he was like in his actual over in All Japan or whatever. If they didn't tell me any of this, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have cared. I am simply reporting to you, the audience, what I watched from the Despe Invitational during Pride Month because Pride is important. When we got there, it was at Clinton Chain Wrestling. Sato went mainly for Zach's lanes, but Zach went straight for submission maneuvers. That was basically the story of the match. Sato kept attacking the lanes. Zach went after Sato's exposed feet for many times in order to counter. Sato was super impressive countering all the matches. Huge technical ability between the two. Eventually, Sato tapped to the stretch muffler while he was grounded, and they both showed immense amount of respect for each other. Went about 10 minutes, no points whatsoever. Fantastic match. If that's his gimmick, though, I can avoid Sato matches in the future. I'm not really into that.
Seems very odd. Okay, so we were down to the main event after that one, correct?
Yeah, I don't have a match card on this because apparently this wasn't treated as a match that was supposed to happen on the card. So they didn't have a match image listed for it according to the gimmick. So we'll just go back to the just you and me.
All right.
It was a tag team match, Steven. Do you know anything about this tag team match going into it?
Well, all right. If you're going to test me on this, I really don't know a whole lot about. Well,
So
let's see.
all you saw were pictures.
Well, yes. All I saw
Okay.
were pictures, and I know Don Shoku Dino's gimmick, kind of.
All
You
right.
know, and I certainly know. So on one side was Dick Togo and Ghetto. I know both of those guys.
Yes.
I also know that Ghetto's insane. So not only the New Japan booker, but he's a little crazy. And but game for a good time, I would suppose. And I know what Dino's thing is. So why don't you just help explain? I'm going to let you explain.
I wanted to give the proper kind of content. So if people are listening to this, I'm going to tell you the following is not safe for work. Okay. It's not safe for work in many, many ways. And I'm going to be explaining things that I personally may or may not be okay with, but I had a good time watching it. And you may not be okay with it, but I'm going to tell you these things that happened and I'm going to report them to you. So this was Dick Togo and Ghetto versus Dan Shoko Dino and El Desperado, but it was not built that way in any way, shape, or form. It started with the announcer warning everybody that Dino's coming to the ring, and well, he's not one for consent. So just be aware that he's very excited for Pride Month. So if you're okay with the faction that the men here should line up for their informed consent. Dino then comes from the top of Corkin Hall, and he jumps into the stands, and he begins kissing men. Kissing willing men here and there, everywhere, through the entirety of Corkin Hall. He jumps down to the ring. He jumps back into the audience. He goes up the ramp to Corkin Hall. He goes across the walkway where everyone does their running moves. He comes back down the other way. He kisses a lead singer of a famous Japanese band who's all in on the action. He comes around the ringside. He comes up right behind Hiromu. And Hiromu closes his eyes. And he understands what's happening. And he stands up. And he puckers his lips. And he turns around. And Dan Shoku Dino gives him biggest kiss on the lips. And then sets him right back down. And then he keeps going to the ring. And then he goes right up to Shomikato. And he plants one right on his face. And then he goes right to the ring. And he grabs a mic. And he explains, I'm Dan Shoku Dino. And I am of the Pheromones. He explained that the Pheromones, that Desperado wanted the Pheromones there. But they have unfortunately disbanded. And now he has an extra invitation. And he didn't know the best way to make Despe happy other than make Despe his partner so he has one less person to pay tonight. So there are no more pheromones left, he says. But can we play pheromone style? He pulls out his bag and he pulls out the fedora, a purple fedora and a purple bow tie and a purple vest. And he says, shall we play Desperado? And Desperado smiles and he goes to the back. And then all of a sudden we hear the Bullet Club War Dogs theme and the entire crowd gasps. And they don't know who's coming out, but Ghetto comes out. And everyone's just like, ooh, Ghetto. Ghetto came out. On the other side, the altered music rights play, and Dick Togo from the House of Torture comes out. They're in the ring, and they're waiting. And then Dino comes out back from the back. He explains that it's Exotico showtime. And then Despe's music plays, and he comes out with the fedora, the top hat, the bow tie, and the smallest pair of trunks that you've ever seen. And they come to the ring and they do a pure comedy match. Even at the body check with Mario Sami, Dino does the hand, puts Sami's hand on his crotch, and Despe can't even keep a straight face. He's losing his mind. This is a match exactly what you think it is, an Exoticos match in the main event of the Desperado Invitational. We get what Dino dropping his trunk to a string, Stinkface and Ghetto right on the middle of the cerulean blue. Togo tries to wheelbarrow Despe into Dino's crotch. That's the kind of match that we're going here. At some point, Dino starts, we want asshole. And that is a cue for throwing Ghetto and Togo into his butt. Like the old Rikishi Stinkface. But instead of the person in the corner, he's propped up on the second rope. So the person just runs his face into it rather than getting run into. You know what I mean? Like the butt is the butt is mobile.
Yeah, no, I think we got it. I think we got it. Yeah, I don't think we need to go into it.
I'm sure you got it, Steven. I know you're enjoying this so much.
I know. No, the DDT stuff isn't my stuff. It's not my thing, but I guess it's some people's thing. So
Dino then took it's time for Despe to become a man. I'm not sure what this meant until Dino started slapping Despe over and over and over again. And Despe understands now. Despe takes off his trunks. And Despe's now down to a jock strap, Steven. He's wearing only a jock strap. And while Ghetto avoids the stink face at first, Dino grabs Ghetto and grabs Jotto. And one by one alternates.
Jotto, what was the hell was Jotto doing?
Oh, not Jotto, Togo.
Oh, thank God.
And sorry. I got way too into this.
I didn't.
The explanation. Togo and Ghetto back and forth into Despe's butt until that was the spot.
Are we coming to the finish here in this? Or?
Yes, we are, man. This was the main event of the show. This was the Despe Invitational. This got a 9.35 on Cage Match. I'm so sorry. We're getting.
This is why I don't care about ratings. All right. What was the finish?
Despe's down to a dog stab, the stink face. Despe and Dino eventually kiss in the middle of the ring, and then after that, Ghetto clutch after a double team on Dino and Bullet Club won.
All right. Well, there you have it, and that was the end of that. The only other thing I noticed here too
I enjoyed
was
that just for your hatred.
No, it was all right. Desperado was having a lot of fun. It looked like everybody had a good time at the show.
Everybody had a great time. I'm glad I took the bullet for you. It reminds me. Okay, we had the Hiromu Takahashi All-Star Festival this past year, like that weekend with the TNA multiverse thing, Multiverse United. This felt like a better version of Hiromu Takahashi's All-Star Festival.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. It was the same vibe, it was the same energy, but it was just done better.
No cheesecakes, no cheesesteaks on a pole match, huh?
Definitely a lot of cheesecake.
Yeah, a lot of cheesecake. That's true. All right. So moving ahead to this weekend. Now, we don't have any shows until All Together, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But first, we're going to talk about NJPW Soul. All Together is that, United Japan Pro Wrestling thing that's rapidly falling apart and will probably not last much longer. But there is a show in Sapporo coming up on Saturday. Those things never last, ever.
Honestly, when the WWE and Noah announcement said, I guess that's the last show for a while.
Anyway, yeah, we don't know what that is, and we're not going to pretend we're not going to speculate on it. We really have no idea what announcement is coming up regarding Noah and WWE.
I'm sorry, Steven. You have no idea what it could be about.
Yeah, we're not sure. So obviously we'll talk about it next week because that will impact New Japan. There's no doubt about it. Anything that when WWE gets involved in Japanese wrestling, it has a ripple effect. I'm very confident that will have an impact on things. So New Japan Soul is what we're going to talk about next, though. This is the show coming up on Sunday, and if you look at this card, this is a really strong card, Jeremy. Really, this is a nice lineup here. First of all, we have two new young lions who will debut in the ring. Now, we've seen them around ringside, mostly at Super Juniors, but this is Masatora Yasuda and Daiki Nagai. Now, Yasuda, 24 years old, he was, it says, born in Mexico. Born in Mexico, but raised in Sapporo. He is the son of Zumbito, a luchador. So he has a Mexican luchador for a father, Yasuda does. And we'll be seeing his debut. And his father worked for CMLL from about 1996 to 2003. After that, he was with AAA mostly, and then some Mexican indies. His career wound down. And so we will be seeing Yasuda. And then Daiki Nagai was in the military. He's 21 years old and was in the military before he got into pro wrestling. So we will be seeing their debut match to kick off the show on Sunday.
You think 10-minute draw?
Makes the most sense, doesn't it? That's what they often do with stuff like this. And they'll be all the way down to the nubbins there, of course. I'd imagine, completely shaved heads and the black tights and the black trunks. So, yeah. And there you have it.
Hey, Satoshi Kojima's back.
Yes, he is. He is back from MLW. And we have the team of, this is an all-skate here, Katsuya Murashima, Shomakato, Tomoaki Honma, Tomohiro Ishii, and Satoshi Kojima against the United Empire Group, Callum Newman, Francesco Akira, Great Khan, Jeff Cobb, and TJP. So looks like United Empire will win here early.
Akira's back.
Yeah, that's true. This is his first match since the injury during Super Junior.
I thought it was a lot more serious than that, but I guess it's been a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Oh,
been about that long. So thankfully, it wasn't a more serious injury than
I
it
kind of assumed it would be. I don't know. Like I just assumed it might be like a couple months, and I'm just glad to see him back already.
We'll see what he's able to do. Maybe he's just kind of easing his way back into things. After that, we have just 5 guys represented by Doki and Taichi against Ren Narita and Yoshinobu Kanemaru.
I got nothing on that one.
Shota Umino will be teaming with Bishamon. So it'll be Yoshihashi, Goto, and Umino. Evil, Yujiro Takahashi, and Dick Togo on the other side of it. So considering Togo and Yujiro are in there, I would be very surprised. There it is.
There was a scuttlebutt that Shota got a little banged up during the Rampage taping that he appeared on last night after Dynamite. So that's something to keep an eye on. I'm curious to see exactly how emphasized Evil is going forward for the rest of the summer after this title match. Honestly, that's if he's still going to be mid-level heel or is he going to get dispatched pretty quick? That's the kind of thing I'm wondering right now.
All right, we'll see there. A lot of these are just it doesn't really pick up until we get to the title matches a little later. But Tetsuya Naito and Titan facing Uemura and Taka Michinoku. This is another example of a match where you kind of know just from the lineup who's doing the job in this one.
Gotta heat up the heater.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then now here we go. So we have a rematch for the never open weight 6-man tag team titles, and that'll be Tanahashi, Toriano, and Oleg Boltin taking on the LIJ team of Yota Tsuji, Hiromu Takahashi, and Bushi. So straight up rematch. We had it where Boltin came back in the ring, got in Tsuji's face, wanted that rematch, wanted another shot at it. And of course, the story of the last one, Tsuji pinning his former mentor from when mentor and his he was Tanahashi's attendant all through his Young Lion days. And we'll see what happens here. Of course, the never openweight 6-man titles bounce around a lot. Could go either direction. It's depending on this serves more of Yota Tsuji's story than any kind of strong 6-man tag title lineage story, I think.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Yota Tsuji and Bolton Oleg like subplot going on here that I've got my eyebrow raised on. And I'm just looking at who on there would make the G1, and I feel like only one person in that entire group of 6 is going to be in the G1 this year. I'm almost worried about it.
That's a good point. It's true. And then we will have a tag team title match. This is the junior heavyweight tag team titles on the line. This time, Drilla Maloney and Clark Connors defending against the TMTK crew of Kosei Fujita and Robbie Eagles. So this one, I'm just going to take a guess that this is going to be a retention. This is another championship that can bounce around pretty freely. I was more intrigued, though, Jeremy, that all the talk after Dominion from Maloney and Connors was about the Forbidden Door. And they seem to be hinting strongly that they're going to be a part of that show, which would be interesting to see. And if so, then this is just a stopover on their way there. But Connors and Maloney at Forbidden Door, what are your thoughts on that, dude? Is that something you'd like to see?
I want to see how they do it. They have de-emphasized Bullet Club Gold or using the Bullet Club name in AEW. But there is still a very little known subplot about David Finlay having the say-so of whether Jay White can ever be a part of Bullet Club in Japan, participate with Bullet Club, so on and so forth. So if Clark and Drilla are going to be a part of Forbidden Door and somehow interact with Jay White and finally settle for good what that relationship is, that's more interesting to me and kind of like an appendix subnote, like an editor's note that they settle because it's just been in the air ever since Jay White left a couple years ago. I want to see what happens with that because I feel like if you can unite Bullet Club between AEW and New Japan, everything, as much as I hate to say it, would feel like it's a little bit more on the same wavelength with each other because Bullet Club feels like it unites all pro wrestling. And if Bullet Club is disparate between New Japan and AEW, that relationship doesn't feel quite as uniform as they want us to believe, if that makes any sense. And that's always been the issue for me, is that when you have little details like that you're willing to overlook just because it's easier rather than the right way to tell a story. I don't like that.
All right. Up next, we will have another rematch. This is the never openweight title. It went to a double knockout at Dominion. They're doing it again right here. Shingo Takagi defending against Henare. Could very well be a title change.
I hope it's a title change. I can't believe I am in the year of 2024 saying, man, it's really Henare's time to get that never title and have like a run. But it really is. I sit there and I've told you last week, and I've felt this way for a while. Shingo needed to be in the main event. He needed to be like IWGP title matches or bust or fighting for that title. He is a fine never open weight title holder, but he is the safe title holder. Henare has been putting on fantastic matches for the last couple of years, very, very quietly. And I think it's time to get his due. I don't think it's going to set the world on fire. His run is going to change anything in particular, but it could. But it is the right direction I think that they should take. And I hope that this is the night that they decide to do so. I wonder if there's the tell of having Shingo in the Owen Hart tournament and they don't want him to have a title on that one because losing who he loses to could play a thing. Or, Kevin Ely from The Boom mentioned they called him the Japanese Dragon on AEW. And there's an American Dragon. So are they hinting towards Dragon versus Dragon? And if they do that, do you do a rematch for the title for the never openweight title? I almost think you don't, but I'd rather just one match and done. So those are all the things that I've been thinking about. And with that being said, I think this is Henare's night so that he can have many more nights when we're talking about him in the way that we're talking about Shingo right now.
All right. And that would be Danielson against Shingo would be a winner for me too. Two guys we haven't seen in quite a while are in the next match. It's for the global championship, the IWGP global title. The champion David Finlay, back from paternity leave, I guess, taking some time off, against Sonata, who was out with an illness. Thankfully, was not terribly serious, but enough it kept him off the rest of the tour, and they let him rest up for a while. He comes back here right into a global title match with David Finlay. So we'll have to see what we get out of this one. Seems early to take the title off of Finlay.
If you want him to be a threat to win the G1, you take the title off of him because there's a credibility factor that no one really thinks that Sonata is going to win the G1 because they're not going to do Sonata and Naito for a fourth time in a calendar year.
Dear Lord, no.
I feel like, or do that program. So there's a lot more possibility to Finlay losing this match and then having a run in the G1. I don't understand this title. And I haven't been led to care about this title. And I know that it is just a repackaged US title or a UK title or however you want to call it. But now that it is this title, they have to figure out a plan if they're going to treat it as parallel to the IWGP World title. Then it needs to be more than, like a match that they not built up due to the circumstances of neither guys being around and then tell you, hey, we're having it. So it would be kind of flat if there were a title change, but I feel like you're having this match because they need to get the title off of him.
You think so?
If they want him to be a threat to win the IWGP title in the G1, I really think that they need to take the title off of him and maybe put it back on him after the G1, which is something that they would easily do just for masking suspicion and stuff like that. Does shit like that with Evil all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Finlay might win this thing and go into the G1 and just have his few losses in the G1 determine who his challengers are going to be as things go on.
And then figure out afterwards who his first title match is going to be based off of the fluke loss that he gets. Here, there, everywhere. It's all there, but if you are doing something different, you could do it the other way. Is all I'm saying.
The main event of New Japan Soul is going to be in a steel cage. It is for the junior heavyweight title, and this was all set up also at Dominion during the trophy ceremony. And this is Sho defending that belt against El Desperado in the cage, and they say that this will keep all of the House of Torture out. Jeremy. It'll keep him out of the cage. Won't have to worry about it at all, which means we probably have to worry about it a lot. So there's this Show versus El Desperado. I've talked myself into both directions with this, as far as Show coming up with a win just to keep the heat, because I think they feel like the fans are properly pissed off whenever he does manage to scrounge a win. And the other side just feels like that would be a really flat thing to do to Desperado at this point. So I'm really curious to see which way they go with this. Leaning toward, I mean, Desperado's had a lot of happy endings lately, and it just, but I also don't think Show's a long-term champion. They pretty much painted it that if anyone gets a fair crack at Show, he can't deal with it, right? And maybe that's what this steel cage is trying to tell us, that the babyface finally gets him in a spot where he can't get the interference he's hoping for and gets the win. Which way do you think it's going?
I'm leaning towards Desperado, and it just made me laugh because I was talking about the example of, like, take a title off of somebody just to create the pathway for them during a big tournament, and then put the title back on them after all said and done. And here we got Desperado, who lost the title via count out before the Best of the Super Juniors, comes back, wins the Best of the Super Juniors, so he's not the champion, and wins the Super Juniors. Then he can win the Super Juniors, then come back, be the champion, and then we realign everything so it's the way it should be. I'm just saying.
Who do you think challenges him? Who do you think challenges him then? If Dunson's question here, afterwards, if he's standing in the ring, Show's been dismissed, he's got the belt now and the trophy. Who's next?
Okay, so when is the match going to happen?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, that's
what I'm saying. It's like, I'm asking you because after this, unless it happens at the main event of New Japan Soul, we ain't getting any match until the middle of August, when they're getting to the semis and the finals of the G1, because all of those cards are going to be all heavyweight matches, top to bottom, as we go. So
they don't really have to name anybody right now, do they?
They don't have to name anyone, but if they feel like, Master Watto's in good shape, or Yo's in good shape, you can
awfully early for Master Watto. It's awfully early.
When was Master Watto? Wasn't it?
Well, but it was an ACL tear, so that usually takes damn near a year. So
not anymore. It's like 9 months to a year. It's not impossible.
Still 9 months.
He was out. He was out in January, right?
Yeah, it's pretty early.
Yeah, so maybe not. Maybe Show. There are people there. You could have somebody that was in the Best of the Super Juniors, maybe from the Despe Invitational. I don't know, but there's no urgency. It could be a guy for the Capital Collision. Somebody like Leo Rush or somebody like that could challenge him for Capital Collision in August and the 30th in Washington, D.C., because that's the point that we're getting at. It's like we're going to have the G1 finals for a while.
You make a fair point. You don't necessarily have to do anything because, like you said, we're about to go all heavyweight all the time for a little while there. And, that's it.
Tyler, we just did a Despe Invitational review for the last 20 minutes, about 10 minutes ago. So we just missed it, buddy.
Yeah, make sure you catch the replay of that one. So Jeremy told you all about it. So there you go.
Steven's enjoyment, top to bottom.
Oh yeah,
it was not safe for work.
Yeah, that was the best half hour of my life right there. So we have that coming up at Seoul. Now, that's the day after All Together, but we wanted to cover that first. It's a little more New Japan-centric, even though there's a lot of New Japan talent on All Together, but not a lot of it that necessarily feeds into the New Japan storyline. This, United Japan Pro Wrestling shows.
I will mention real quick before we do the All Together, there's one match that's happening on the same day as...
oh, yes, of course. Yeah, that's true. It's on Noah Show.
Yes. Go ahead.
So
I'll let you.
The GHC heavyweight title will be on the line. Kato Kiyomiya will be defending it against Gabe Kidd. So Gabe tried to throw Kato Kiyomiya off the balcony at Korakuen Hall. Thankfully, he was unsuccessful in that, but he gets his title shot here. So Kato Kiyomiya, Gabe Kidd, GHC heavyweight title, as Gabe Kidd proceeds to challenge for every championship in professional wrestling as quickly as possible. So look out, anybody who has a belt, including young children at concession stands buying souvenirs. You never know. You might get sneak attacked by Gabe Kidd and laid out.
And if you were wondering, this is the same Gabe Kidd who shit-talked AEW and WWE in a domestic interview in California a few weeks ago, and is now on the same card of a Noah Show that is going to be announcing a partnership with WWE. And I'm sure that makes everybody absolutely delighted. I love the chaos. Let me have more of it.
If there's a man who doesn't care, it is Gabe Kidd right there. He's when he's in character, he is a true loose cannon in a good way, I think, an entertaining way. So yeah, all together, there's a Panda Bear wrestling. So let's just go through this card. There's not, like I said, a lot of this is going to be pretty frivolous. So we have a giant Panda Bear and Tomoya taking on Toru Yano and Tomoaki Honma. God help us all.
It wasn't until I put this match listing together that I got the joke about the panda.
Go ahead.
Do you know what the joke about the panda is?
Well,
if you say his full name, do you know what the full name of the panda is?
Oh yeah, Andre's the giant panda. Yeah,
Andre the giant panda.
Yeah. And of course, Toru Yano is the tourism ambassador for this area, which is famous for having bears in it and all this. And there's a lot of tie-ins here that
I love stupidity like that. I am unapologetic about my love for that kind of stupidity.
Tyler's joking around here saying Kidd versus Orton at Wrestle Kingdom. Take my money. I'm not putting anything past anything anymore.
I don't rule anything out at this point.
And me neither now. Zack Sabre Jr., Robbie Eagles, Kosei Fujita against Oka Sasaki Hayata and Yu Owada. So there you have it. That'll be a 6-person tag there. And like I said, most of these guys, there's a little DDT representation on this show. There's obviously Stardom, which is the next match, Azumi and Starlight Kid, the Eternal Foes. This match is always fantastic. These two have brilliant chemistry. They are in their early 20s with 10 years of experience wrestling each other. It will not go wrong. This is one of the great rivalries in pro wrestling. This is mostly New Japan and Noah. There's a little bit of All Japan in here. There's a little bit of like I said, excuse me, I just blanked on the company's name, but
Stardom.
Well, Stardom. Yeah, I had that one, but I mean, there's also a little bit of what is it? No, it's not DDT. Who else in this? Yeah, I guess it is, isn't it? Yeah, there's a little bit of DDT in there, but mostly Noah and New Japan. The point being, this is all starting to fall apart already. we're not getting a whole ton of cooperation.
I don't think it's starting to fall apart. There are no current plans for any future events.
And to absolutely nobody's surprise, TJPW is not involved in any of it. So they're allegedly part of this alliance. No one's heard from them. They're not returning calls. So there you have it. After that, we have this one. That'll be a good match at least. This will be a terrific match. Azumi and Starlight Kid.
I agree.
Up next, we have Bishamon, Hiroki Goto, Yoshihashi. They will be taking on that's Daisuke Sakimoto and Hashimoto there. So that's another one that's mostly that's going to also Noah and New Japan. And now I've been thinking about all these promotional names, and they're all just getting mixed up in my head. But Daisuke Sakimoto, Daiichi Hashimoto against Bishamon.
I appreciate Bishamon is now the elder statesman tag team of all of Japan, and they just go everywhere. And they just do their Bishamon tag team match. And God bless them, man. They had their 3 years of being on top, and now they're just chilling.
After that, we have there is a mix up here between the promotions. We have Tetsuya Endo, Shota Umino, and Ryohei Oiwa against Kazusada Higuchi and Jeff Cobb and Great Okan from United Empire.
That's one beefy side of meat over there. Beefy side. And then you got Jeff Cobb after all that beef on the one side. You got Jeff Cobb and Higuchi on the Ryohei Oiwa was a beefy boy. That's all I'm saying. There's a whole lot of beef over there.
Yeah, he's really been hitting the gym. No question about that. He's a lot thicker than he was when we last saw him in Japan.
I know you thought I was talking about the other side. I was not.
Yeah, well, we have the Just Five Guys crew, Sonata, Taichi, and Yuya Uemura, and they'll be taking on the icons of All Japan, Noah, and New Japan. So we have Hiroshi Tanahashi, the president, Naomichi Marufuji, and Kento Miyahara from All Japan. I believe the only All Japan representative on this show.
I think so.
So there it is. Of course, Miyahara, one of the great workers in the world. Marufuji is a legend. Hiroshi Tanahashi is Hiroshi Tanahashi. So all that in there with the Just Five Guys.
I'm looking forward to this match. Are you going to get a chance to be able to watch a show when it happens?
I don't know. I'm not actually sure if I will be able to see this one.
There's a lot of wrestling this weekend in Japan.
There is.
I am trying to take in exactly how much I was like, oh, Nikes, there's a lot to go on right here.
And Colin tells us that Sekimoto is facing Titus Alexander in Marvelous on the 18th. It's Titus's last match before he goes back to the U.S. So there you go. That'll be a big one for him. And then we have
matches.
Now, these two have faced each other a few times now. I recently watched it on one of the Noah shows from Wrestle Universe, one of their events. Ishii and Masa Kitamiya, and this is the classic two bulls clashing in the middle of the field, right? This is just going to be a lot of clotheslines, suplexes, a lot of probably some more headbutts than we really need, but this is going to be the shoulder tackles where everybody just crashes into each other at high speeds. And it's going to be an Ishii match. And Kitamiya wrestles a fantastic Ishii match, whether Ishii's in it with him or not. He pretty much does this style. So he's well-versed in it. And every time I've seen these two in the ring together, it's been excellent. I see no reason why this one won't be either. My only question is poor Masa Kitamiya finally going to get a win on Tomohiro? I think it might happen here.
I wonder if they're going to get inspired from that last Jeff Cobb match and do a little bit more aerial and ground stuff that they did between Cobb and Ishii, because I felt like these two guys are capable of doing similar stuff to that. So I'm just curious if that lit a fire under them to match the intensity of the Cobb match.
All right, we have some LIJ up next. So this one is going to be Shingo Takagi, Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Titan, and Yota Tsuji versus LJ Cleary. The good-looking guys, that's Jack Morris and Anthony Green, and the War Dogs, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney. Now, Cleary did not endear himself to the War Dogs by losing at Dominion. There was a little bit of tension backstage, so we'll see if this alliance between the War Dogs and GLG holds up. But here they are. This rivalry continues, and it leads to the main event, which is also between LIJ and the good-looking guys.
Yeah, there was beer fetching on LJ Cleary's role after getting handed his ass by Zack Sabre Jr. That was the same Forbidden Door promo, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Yeah. So,
and well,
I hope the guys are all good.
Yeah, everybody involved in this one's good, so it should be fine. After that, we have the All Rebellion team of Keno, Kaito Kiyomiya, and Alejandro facing Yohei and the War Dogs, represented by David Finlay and Gabe Kidd. So this goes over from, it's a preview, basically, of the GHC title match the next day. So I imagine there'll be a lot of Kiyomiya and Kidd in this one as they preview their title match for the next night.
Yeah, I think that's probably the overarching story. This is what I was thinking of when I was thinking of Kiyomiya and Keno. They're on the same page with each other. So this is
they're in this new group
jog their memory.
Yep. Yeah. Oiwa was invited but declined. He's going as the lone wolf gimmick here. So after that, we have the main event, Tetsuya Naito against Jake Lee. Now, Naito said that no one knows who Jake Lee is, really. Pretended like he didn't even know Jake Lee's name, couldn't remember it, played up the idea that he's a nobody. He said at Dominion that his opening match with Callum Newman was a bigger deal to fans than the altogether main event. And basically, Naito is being very, very dismissive of Jake Lee. So I'm not sure what they're going for in this one, but if it were anything other than New Japan versus Noah, I would say, Naito's definitely losing this with the way he is dismissing Lee. However, you cannot rule out the idea of New Japan running over Noah like a steamroller. They seem to do it even on Noah shows, let alone at all together shows.
This is like the only match that you feel like has consequence in this whole thing, you know?
Right.
I would not rule out Jake Lee winning this match, then Naito winning at Forbidden Door, and then Jake Lee challenging Naito for the IWGP title at some point. Or Jake Lee getting an invite into the G1 as a result of beating him here. I feel like the first option, if Jake Lee wins, is much more likely, is that, come after the G1, he becomes a guy fighting Naito for the title and teasing whether he's going to face the winner of the G1 at Wrestle Kingdom kind of thing. That would be an excellent little side story that they could do there. Or they could just wrap it up now, put Naito back in business with Moxley, get him ready for the New Japan, action that he's got to focus on because they're not doing cooperations after this one. It could go either way. I feel like the finish of this match will tell you exactly what the future of these cooperations are. Yeah,
that's a good point because all the way through, Naito has had the best of Lee. So the story seemed to be Lee finally managing to win one of these things. Because, yes, he attacked Naito and caused him to lose to Drilla Maloney. He did that. But then when they actually wrestled each other, the elimination match, Naito eliminated Lee to win the match. Then they wrestled again in a tag team match on a Noah show. Shingo Takagi teamed with Naito against good-looking guys. And in the end, Naito is holding Jake Lee, forcing him to watch his partner be pinned by Shingo Takagi. It's just been Naito, Naito, Naito all the way through. And in a conventional pro wrestling story, that would mean that Lee is going to be getting a big win here. But like you mentioned, they might just wrap the thing up because we don't really know what the future of these things are, or if they're even going to be cooperating with Noah going forward in the same way that they have been. I hope they do. But you also mentioned you could absolutely have Lee win this thing and then challenge Naito later. They could go either direction with it, but it's going to speak.
The biggest thing to me is that the minus Jake Lee showing up the once, maybe twice in New Japan, this has been more of outside of New Japan shows kind of an angle. Like a lot of this has been happening in the Noah.
Well, it's a little of each because they did the elimination match with Jake Lee. That was in New Japan. They did the Noah show. Right? Yeah, they've done a Noah match. They've done all together here, so it's been sprinkled around.
But I feel like when you explained all the things that happened with Naito and Jake Lee, only one of those things really happened in the New Japan ring, which feels more obligatory rather than like, hey, we are collaborating on this angle together, if that makes any sense. Like when you think of the optics of how much is happening at one promotion versus what's happening between both promotions, that's a good kind of indicator to me exactly what's driving this and what the motivation of the end goal is.
All right. Well, that's going to be the Altogether show in Sapporo on Saturday. That one's on Saturday with New Japan Seoul on Sunday. So by the way, the Seoul tour will continue on. There will be shows Tuesday in Aomori and Wednesday in Iwate. As of right now, those are not expected to be on NJPW World. They aren't listed as being on NJPW World. It looks like those might end up being just house shows. And the next time we see next time we see them on NJPW World after Sunday with Seoul will be the following weekend. So the Saturday and Sunday shows the following weekend look like they will be on.
I got a question for you. The play-in tournament starts on June 22nd for the G1 and ends on July 5th, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that would mean if you were booked for the AEW show in any way, shape, or form, you were not going to be in the play-in tournament for the G1.
When's the AEW show again? The 30th, right?
Like the 29th or the 30th? Yeah.
Yeah. So the 22nd and 23rd will be the first couple of shows where they could get things down to like the semifinals. You could do semifinals and finals in very early July. You could make those flights. Doesn't
but you would have to announce it and then just kind of give away. You'd kind of be giving a little bit away if you would announce somebody who was in it, but was also in Forbidden Door, but was in AEW.
I don't think so because they could wrestle in the round of 8 and then get over to Forbidden Door and be back for the semifinals.
Unless they had plans to be booked in the run-up of Forbidden Door, is what I'm saying. It's like they can't make they can't make the date for the beginning because they're in the plans for the Forbidden Door. You know what I'm saying? It's like
you mean like Dynamite or something like that? Or?
Yeah, like a Dynamite and Collisions and Rampage. It's like it may end up ruling out AEW people that people had their hopes up because of dates. You just heard Tony Khan just pulled somebody that was double booked for Triple Mania and Collision on Saturday. So, just they may not be able to count on that. What else we got? Anything else?
Well, the only other thing I wanted to mention here before we sign off for the day is today is the 15th anniversary of the passing of Mitsuharu Misawa. And I'm just going to bring him up. This is one of my personal favorite wrestlers. I believe he is truly one of the greatest of all time. He's basically the reason that Noah exists. He was one of the top stars for All Japan Pro Wrestling after the death of Giant Baba. I'm going to boil down a lot here real thin. But after the death of Giant Baba, there was a lot of disagreement in the Japan All Japan front office about how the company should be run. And as things deteriorated there. Misawa and most of that roster, including Kenta Kobashi, Jun Akiyama, both of whom he helped to make, basically everybody except Toshiaki Kawada and a few others, very few others, ended up leaving All Japan. And they were without a company, but they had a bit of an agreement with the TV network to air a new show if they can come up with one. And he said that he likened the situation to a bunch of wrestlers on Noah's Ark, just trying to find land, a place to land. They got Pro Wrestling Noah from that. And he formed a new company with most of the All Japan roster, and came up with his own training center over there at Differ Ariake, which has been torn down now. That was a victim of the Japan Olympics. They created the Ariake Arena and stuck it right where that old barn was, where the Noah offices and primary arena and training center all were. But Mitsuharu Misawa, one of the great wrestlers, if you watch his matches from All Japan in the mid-90s, they're some of the best things that have ever happened in a ring. He was already a legend by the time he created Noah, but he was one of the top stars along with Kobashi and Akiyama. We've talked about the four pillars. Of course, Eddie Kingston mentions them all the time. And of course, Noah has been intertwined with the New Japan story ever since its formation as heavy competition. There were times when Pro Wrestling Noah was probably ahead of New Japan there in the aughts, especially the early 2000s, and then still have either worked with, against, around New Japan ever since. And that was the company where Misawa worked for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, he died in the ring, basically took a back suplex, and it killed him. Finally, one bump too many. Very sad situation. He died in the ring there. And, it's just something to think about as we go forward with New Japan, because there's a lot of that style in some of the things we see in New Japan. Some of the guys came out of that training. Certainly Kenta, one of the all-time Noah legends. Taiji Ishimori, one of the all-time Noah legends, who have brought some of that style into New Japan. And Mitsuharu Misawa, a big part of all that, one of the best of all time, passed away 15 years ago. And I did that all extemporaneously. I probably should have put something a little more coherent together.
I thought you did fantastic, to be honest. I was like, you usually prep all this stuff. If you did that off the top of your head, that was fantastic, honestly.
Yeah, I just did that with no notes. This is probably his. That's I'm doing the Weatherman thing. That's his autograph right here that I bought at Tudo-Okan. And I have a Kenta Kobashi one over here. It's just one of the guys that I took to immediately when I started trading tapes in the 1990s. So I would get these compilation tapes, people taping New Japan TV and All Japan TV. So I was getting Kaiji Muto and Masahiro Chono and Shinya Hashimoto, so the original Three Musketeers, with Liger and the Black Tiger and some of those guys on the New Japan shows. And then you get the little fuzzy static as it's switched the dub over to an All Japan TV, and you would get Misawa and Kobashi and things. And if that didn't make you a lover of Japanese wrestling, I don't know what could. It was some of the very best stuff that's ever been seen. Both companies just on fire in the 90s. I get to watch all that from my college apartment in Bloomington, Indiana. So, I just have a lot of fond memories of Misawa because he was one of the top guys then. And then forming Pro Wrestling Noah, of course, has had a profound effect on pro wrestling in Japan. And All Japan really hasn't been higher than third place very much ever since. Like Noah kind of passed them by, and they've been struggling to keep up ever since. Now they have a lot of young talent, All Japan does, but once Misawa, Kobashi rather, and Akiyama left, that was a tall hill to climb. And in some ways, they're still kind of feeling the effects of Misawa leaving. So there you go. 15 years ago today, Misawa passing away in the ring. And, as always, I think about his family, I think about his friends, and I think about his effect on pro wrestling and the type that I love most. So Mitsuharu Misawa on this date.
We're going to wrap this up pretty quick, but I just wanted to do the quick We are members of the Fight Game Media YouTube channel and audio feed. We have our own audio feed that you can find by Googling Speaking of Strong Style. If you can give a like, a thumbs up, a 5-star on whatever audio feed that you're listening on, we thank you very much. I usually have a full other spiel, but I think you guys have heard it like 5 times in the last 3 weeks. So I'm going to skip over it so we can head out of here in 90 minutes. And thank you thoroughly for spending all your time with us.
We definitely appreciate it. Don't forget Popcorn Pile Drivers, Power Bombshells here to our sibling show. That'll be on Sunday at 1:00 Eastern. And just check it all out. You know, the drill with Fight Game Media, Dynamite Show. There's a lot of great stuff.
I'm going to put a thing right here for you. We got this.
There you go. There it is all right there. So with that in mind, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who watched us here live. Thanks to everybody who's listening as a podcast later. For Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style. We'll talk to you again very soon.